Okay, we have built all of the reachability information. We've verified SSH connectivity and capabilities into each of the individual resources, meaning the vManage, the vBond, and the vSmart. Now what we want to do is we want to start looking at how we're going to implement a certificate authority. Now there are many different ways to configure the vManage device. We are going to use manually generated and assigned certificates. Now to be able to set this up, it's going to be very important for us to walk through the overall process, and it's obviously going to begin with the creation of the actual certificates themselves. However, to do that, we need to make some modifications to our Docker container that we're going to be using as our jump box, and I want to walk through that process. Now you have the details on how to do this in the lab guides, and again, this is tailored to my specific environment. And again, if you get a copy of EVNG and use their Docker container, it's already got everything in it that you're going to need to be able to compile and create our certificates and then distribute them. So let's go ahead and take a look at it from the perspective of the jump box. Now we see here I'm logged into the vManage. Now, looking at the vManage, I can see that I have one vManage device that's registered. I have no vBonds, no WAN Edge, and no vSmarts. Now, we have to address this, and what we're going to do is we're going to do it step by step. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create those certificates. Now, to do that, I'm going to need you to go into your device. Now, I'm just making sure everything's clean. So what I'll do is I'll just minimize all of this. And what we want to do is we want to go into the root home drive. Now, inside of here, what I want to do is I want to create some folders. Now, the folder I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder called root CA. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just do it from the terminal just because it's faster. So I'll come in here, and from CA, what I'm going to do is I am going to ls and see if I see my directory, desktop, client, and the configurations here. So that's exactly where I am here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and say I want to make directory, and we'll go ahead and call this directory root CA. And I'll change directory to root CA. We see that this actually worked because if I come over here I can see everything, and we'll use this as our kind of window into what's happening. Now inside of the root CA folder, now this is going to be my root certificate authority folder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a directory, and I'm going to call that directory new certs. And there it is. Now what I'm going to do is I am actually going to create an index file, and it's going to be an empty index file. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use touch. So I'll say touch, and we'll call it index.txt. Notice it creates a index.txt file. And then the last thing what I want to do is I want to create another file called serial. So what I'll do is I'll come over here and say echo, and I want to echo the value of 01, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and say to a file called serial. We see there are all of the components that I just discussed and went through. Now we're going to need serial to be executable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change its modification. So I'll do chmod, and I'm going to say +X for executable, and I'll make it serial. Now before I do that, if I come over here and I do ls, we see serial is black. Now if I say chmod and do +X and I say serial, and then I do ls, you'll notice it's now green. So it's now an executable file. Now the next thing that I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to create another file. Now there's a number of ways to do this. You can use Vim. I don't know if Nano's installed. Let me see, is Nano installed? No, it's not. So the easiest way to do this, in my opinion, is to come over and say create a empty file, a document, and there it is. And then I'm just going to use this as my master file. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on it, and I'm going to say I want to open it with Pluma. Now what I need to do now is I need to create a new file, and this file is going to be called my ca.conf file, and it's going to contain information necessary to allow the open SSL that we're going to be using to function in this lab. Now the way I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to connect to my configuration here, and I'm going to go to my download folder. Remember when I created my RDP session, I said I wanted to map a folder? Well, there is a folder in here that I created called, it's my download folder on my host that's actually hosting my session here. And it takes a little while for this thing to actually scan all the files. I have a lot of information out there. Probably should have shared a smaller directory. But ultimately what will end up happening is I'll get a big list of values, and one of those values is going to be called, I think I called it CA stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search and see if I can find one called CA. Well, probably would have been easier just to search for it. So let's say reload. Should be certificate authority stuff. That up for us. Download. Yeah, best laid plans. So I'll do it one more time. And unfortunately, it's got to scan the whole document again. I'll probably edit this out post. But I'm looking for a folder or a file called CA stuff. Once I find that file, I'll open it and I'll copy the contents into my Puma fold file. So let's see. Do I have a value in here? Just excuse all of my stuff. So I should have one in here called CA stuff. There it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my desktop. And I'm just going to paste that in. Actually, it's not going to let me. You know what? I need to use my head. So let's do this. I'll say copy. I just want to double check something. I'm pretty rusty with my Linux. Type more. Yeah. So let's do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say copy. And we'll go to, got to find the folder first. So it'll be under thin client drive, so it'll be change directory to thin client drives, download CA stuff. And this will probably take as long as the other. Bear with me. Open with Pluma. There we go. So basically this is what I was looking for. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over here and we'll just say edit, select all. Well, actually, you know what? It'll be easier just to save as. And I want to save it as ca.conf. And I'm going to go ahead and say under root under root CA, and we'll put it here. Let's see if it actually did what I wanted it to do. Root CA, and I should have a ca.conf file, and there it is. So the primary objective here is to create that file. Now what I want to do next is I need to generate certificates using it. And you'll see if you look at the outline here, it basically tells you it tells the system where everything is located. Now, a lot of the SD-WAN policies could be configured here ahead of time. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave everything blank. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of Pluma. And I'll say, no, I don't want to use you anymore. So I'll go ahead and exit out of here. And then what I'm going to do is I want to open up a new session. So to do that, again, I'll just come down to Tools and I'll grab a copy of Mate. And I'm going to change my directory to root CA. And we see everything that I need. I have my ca.conf file, that's my configuration file for my certificate authority settings. I have the index.txt file, I have the serial folder or the serial file, and I have the new certs. And I've got this new file in here that we'll actually be using later on to recreate some or to create some more files. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to engage Open SSL. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say generate an RSA, and I'm going to create it, and it's going to be a key called CA Key, and it's going to be a 2048 as its modulus. So I'm just creating an RSA key. And if I do ls, we see that that key is indeed right here. And if I cat it, cat ca.key, it's going to look just like a key is supposed to look. It's a private key that I'm going to use. Then what I want to do is I actually want to begin creating a root certificate. So I've just got a key. Now what I need to do is create a root certificate. And again, I'm going to do that with the Open SSL. And again, these instructions are all in your workshop, your workbooks. So it's going to be Open SSL request, and I'm going to say -new, and it's going to be an X509 certificate. It's going to last for 365 days. And I'm going to use the key that I just made, ca.key. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an output file. So I'm going to output a file called ca.crt. And let's see if this actually works. Actually, what did I do? Open SSL request new. Make sure I didn't screw the text up here. So 1 second. Open SSL request new X095 days. It's always the little things that get me when it comes to Linux. And here we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create my root certificate. So I'm going to use US. My state is Virginia. My city is going to be Radiant. My organization name is going to be micronixlab.com, and that's very important. My organizational unit will be lab, and my fully qualified domain will be micronixlab.com, and my email will be admin@micronixlab.com. Now, I meant to do this as an uppercase, but it's not really going to, or shouldn't cause me any problems. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with this. And what I've done just now is I've created my root certificate. Now, what I need to do is I need to send this root certificate to each of my 3 controllers. Now, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to say SCP for secure copy, and I'll say CAR, so it'll be CACRT, and I'm going to send it to admin. It's going to be to 172.1.100.201. So that's going to be to my vManage, admin. I'm going to send it to 102, which is going to be my vBond, admin. And then I'm going to send it to 203, which is going to be my vSmart, admin. All right, so the files have all been sent. Now what I want to do is I want to verify that those files did indeed arrive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the devices themselves. So I need to go into my secure CRT session, and I'll start with vManage. And I'll say admin, admin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the vShell mode. And from the vShell mode, what I'm going to do is say ls-l, and I should see the CACRT. I'm going to do the exact same thing for all of these. So I'll say vShell ls-l, whoops, ls-l, CACRT, and then lastly the vSmart. So vShell ls-l, and there is the CA certificate. Now what I need to do now is I need to actually import the new root CA that I've just created, and in order to be able to do that, I'm going to need to execute some commands that you guys may have never seen before. Now they're not in vShell, so I need to exit out of vShell. In fact, I'll do that on all of these so we don't get confused. All right. So now the command that I'm going to use is going to be request. So basically this is going to say I want to perform an action. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the request that I'm going to send is going to be for a root certificate chain. So it's going to be, I'm going to manage my root certificate chain, and I want to install it. Now that is going to be located in the home admin ca.crt. So it's going to be the file, and that's the admin infrastructure. Let's go ahead and see if it actually applies, and it says it successfully installed the root certificate chain. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to grab this and do it on all of the other devices. Successfully added and successfully added. Now all this did was basically install the root certificate that I'm going to be using in order to get things to work. Now if I wanted to look at that, I can go to any one of these devices and I could say show certificate, and I want to look at the root CA certificate, and I see everything is applied. Now what's important to me is that this says micronixlab.com, because that's the way my Viptela license file is structured. These things are important, and remember, I use the exact same organizational name when I configured my devices on the command line. So it becomes very, very important that these things match. Now there is one other thing that I want to do, and I don't know if it's a requirement anymore or not, but what I want to do is I want to make certain that I verify that the vManage database is resynced. Now what does that mean? Well, this is my vManage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another tab, and I'm going to go to a website called 172.1.100.201. That's the IP address of my vManage. And I'm going to go to the data service /system/device. And what I want to do is I want to look at the sync root cert chain. So basically that's the link that I'm going to. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and it should come up and tell me that the sync root cert chain is done. Now I don't know if this is a requirement anymore. It was a requirement in older versions of the Viptela deployments, but I'm just playing it safe right now. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to entertain what's going to be involved in beginning to use these certificates, because what I want to do is I want to add controllers to my vManage. Now this has been a relatively long video, so what we'll do is we'll pick that up in the next one. And until then, you know, I wish you the best of luck, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And remember, all of these tasks are in your workbook. I'll see you guys in the next video where we actually start adding our controllers.